Okay, welcome everyone. As we are progressing in this very special parak of Hazav, I guess it's easier to call it special than hard. Michal Avram was talking about how earlier he was out and about and he saw that the learning was much less than usual. And it's Ben Azmanim. So we're doing our part to uphold the world. And I see already Yisrael Fisher has escaped to Tannersville. Are you there for Pesach? Are you there for Pesach? What?
And for tax season.
It's over.
Not midnight yet.
So, are you an accountant? So bravo to you for coming to this year.
That's a tough time. Tax time.
Yeah, I went on extension today.
So do most of my clients.
It's really tough times in Eretz Yisrael. I was just speaking to someone. He's being called up. He's leaving tomorrow. He's not going to be home with his family for the Seder. It's really amazing.
The son is one of the soldiers.
Yeah.
Just had a baby a few weeks ago. Just got called up.
So he won't be home for Pesach.
I don't know. We don't know. We're not really sure. They send it back home. They bring it back and forth. It's rough on everybody.
Really amazing. It's really amazing. Out of coffee?
No, this is ginger ale.
Yeah. Can you have a coffee now? It's too late in the night for you to have it.
It's not too late.
Why you stay up when you drink?
Some people, many people do. I take it away to sleep. Most people do.
Sab also was the same way. He says,
I drink the coffee. I stay up no matter what it is. I stay up from the shoe.
Well, caffeine is a chemical that
yeah.
I can't. But in my case, it has a paradoxical effect. Some people don't. I think the average person gets hypotonic, or that's why people drink a lot in the day. When they get up, they feel they need a boost.
I drink the coffee and stay awake, and it keeps me awake.
Like Yom Kippur and some of the bigger things.
Okay. We're getting along now, along the way, as we, okay, every minute we get richer over here, as we are sponsored by A.B. Spry and family, for Nachas Manol family, and by Michal Avram Chavin, for all of us to finish Shas with Gesund, and we welcome in Saba, and we welcome in Mark Frankel, and we welcome in Irving Fishbaum, and we welcome in Berish Gesserman, we welcome in Eddie Chazan, Yisrael Fisher in Tannersville, and we welcome in Nachman Chapler, Dr. Guy, Stephen Holtzman. We welcome in Shelley Zeitlin, Ruvain Pollack, Mel Zachter, Ben Cian Cohn, Yitzi Fuchs. And it's good to remind us to have in mind Refu Shalema for Yaakov Avadia Ben Freda Rivka, Rabbi Kranz. He should have Refu Shalema B'Seg Shachel Yisrael, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Aaron Swade, Ilya Shutman, Yitzi Muller, Abe Arbach. Here in Shul, we are rich to have Gedalia Engel, and we have Kramer, Michal Avram, Ruvain Shannon joining us, and Jay Siegel is just creeping back in. He's having some computer problems. We are holding on the bottom of Mem Vav Amid Beis. So Amar Rabbah, Amar Rav Huna. Rabbah says the name of Rav Huna. Mark has a very, very, very nice stallion. Whoa. Whoa. I take a bunch of bills and I say, Mechar li be'elu. Sell it to me for these. So the Gemara says a very big kiddush. Kana. Now when it says kana, it means that I acquired it even though I didn't do Mashiach on the stallion. Now that's strange. Normally, if I'm buying a stallion, if we want to make it that no backseas, I have to make Mashiach on the stallion. However, the Gemara says kana, and v'yesh lo alav ina. There is a din ana that if Marx says after he counts the bills and he sees that it was a sixth less than the stallion was worth, then he could claim ina. He could claim that he was cheated. So now the Gemara explains over here. Kana, he acquires it, afal gav d'loi mashach, even though I didn't make a ma'aseh mashiach. Now why? The kavan d'loi kapid, since he wasn't makpid to count the money. He didn't look. Let me see how many $1,000 bills did Rabbi Weiss give me for this blue blood stallion. Since he wasn't makpid, so therefore, kana dechi chalipin dami. It's like chalipin. Now, if it's an article of exchange, then an article of exchange, chalipin works immediately. That as he takes the bills, I get the stallion. However, by chalipin there's no ainah, because it says v'chi simkru memkar lamisecha. There's loisainu ishes amisai is by memker. So if it would be chalipin, then there shouldn't be ainah. However, v'yesh lo yalav ainah. There is a din of ainah. Why? Demechar li be'elu kamalei, because I used the lashon of mechira. And since I used the lashon of mechira, that guarantees that the laws of overpricing is in force. So the Gemara is going to ask shortly, what are you talking about? It's chalipin. Didn't we say that you don't do chalipin with money? But before we get to that, Rav Abba Amar Rav Huna mechar li be'elu kana. If I say, sell me for these bills, and Mark takes the bills, I acquire the stallion, it has a din of chalipin, and with chalipin there's no overcharging. Says the Gemara, so pshita, it's obvious, damim ve'ein makbid aleihen, if it was bills, and Mark didn't stop to count them, ha'amrinon, we said the kani the kechalipin dami, that I acquire the stallion because it acts like chalipin. But what about the other way around? If, let's say, I'm buying from him a Scrabble set, and I give him a fancy turban as a kinyan. In lieu of this turban, I'm getting the Scrabble set. And Mark is very makbid to see that the turban is worth enough like the Scrabble set. So the Gemara says, what about the other way around? Chalipin, where it's an article of exchange, but umakbid aleim. he's makbid to see if it has value, then what happens there? Do we say that it still has the rules of chalipin? Do we say that when Mark takes the sudar, the turban, it's binding? Or maybe since he shows that he's makbid, that it should be of value, maybe it has a din like a purchase, and if it has a din like a purchase, then the deal is only binding when I do Mashicha on the Scrabble set, or Hagvah, if it's a light Scrabble set. So Amar Rav Ada Barava, Toshma, Harishahaya Toifes Poirasai, V'Aimed. If let's say I'm walking with a cow, and Yisrael says, Paras Chalama, why are you walking around with a cow? Yisrael says, why are you cowing around? Excuse me, he's in Tannersville, so why are you cowing around? So I tell him, you're right. I really don't need a cow. L'chamor ani tzarech. I need a donkey. So Yisrael says, well, it happens to be yesh li chamor sh'ani noisin lach. I have a donkey that I could give you, and the truth of the matter is I need a cow. Parascha bekama. What do you want for your cow? Bekach bekach. Chamorcha bekama. What do you want for your donkey? Bekach bekach. Moshach bala chamor es hapara. If Yisrael does a ma'aseh kinyan on my cow and pulls it to him, v'lo hispik bala hapara limshoich es hachamor, and I didn't get a chance to pull Yisrael's donkey, until Yisrael's donkey died. So the din is, the deal is not gone through. Like the din is that since the donkey died, so Yisrael doesn't get my cow. So Shmamina Chalipinu Makbid Alehem, where we made an exchange, but we were makbid. Each one wanted to know how much the item was worth. Loikana, it's not acquired with a straight up chalipin until each side makes Mashiach. And therefore, since I didn't get a chance to make Mashiach on the donkey yet, therefore and it died. So therefore, Rabbi Yisrael doesn't get the cow. Amar Rava. So Rava says, Atu chalifin b'shuftani askinan. When we make chalipin, are we talking about fools? Delo kapte? That people don't mind? Elakol chalipin mikte kapte v'kana. All cases of an exchange, people are makbid to know that they're getting proper value, and yet when you make an exchange, you acquire the other item as soon as Yisrael takes the cow, I acquire the donkey. But here, the reason why, if it dies before in Yisrael's property, the reason why it's not binding is it's where we made up that I'll get Yisrael's donkey for a cow and a sheep. He drew to him the cow, V'adayin lo mashach es hatleh, but he didn't draw to him the sheep. The lo yavalei mashicha ma'alya. It wasn't a good mashicha, and that's why it's not binding. So now, let's start looking at this a little bit more closely. Amamar, let's go back to the case where I told I'm buying Mark's stallion. Well, he said, Mecharli be'elu. I tell him, sell me this for these bills. Kana, I acquire it even before I make Mashiach on the stallion. But even so, v'yesh lo ya'alav einah, there's the din of overcharging since I used the lashon of Mecharli. But we said the reason why I get the stallion even before I made Mashiach is because it's considered chalipin. So the Gemara says, but I gave him money. Lema savar Rav Huna matbeya nasa chalipin. Does that mean Rav Huna holds that money could be an article of chalipin like a sudar? Says the Gemara, Loi. Rav Huna savar like Reb Yochanan. Rav Huna holds like Reb Yochanan. Dvar Torah, biblically speaking, mois kainos. Money makes an acquisition, and therefore, since I gave Mark money, I acquire the stallion. Why do we insist that it's not mine until I draw it to me? Because if you remember, we're afraid that where Dr. Black sold me the Britannica, if Mashiach is not necessary, he might not protect it if there's a fire. But where do we say that we make this gzeira? By a normal case. When somebody gives a person a wad of bills and he doesn't count it, that's not normal. Milsa de shchicha goes b'rabbanan. Or milsa de lo shchicha, but this is something that's not normal, like goes b'rabbanan. The rabbanan didn't make the din. We welcome in Sandy Grunfeld, and a lot of people snuck in over here while I was talking. Mo Kushner, it's good to have you. And I see Menachem Yamansky has made it. Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Moshe Lehman. It's Gabe Arbach. It's great to have all of you on our 26th Zoomer evening here. And Amalei Marhuna Bereid Rav Nachman Ravashi. Atun hochi masnisula. This is the version you have. Anan hochi masninula. I have the following version. V'chein amar Rav Huna, clearly Rav Huna says, Ein matbeya nasa chalipin. That after this teaching, it says clearly that you shouldn't think it works as chalipin, because Ein matbeya nasa chalipin. Now we're going to talk about a little bit about the bread and butter of chalipin. How do we do chalipin? Do we do kelav shel koine, that the one who's acquiring gives the handkerchief, and in lieu of the handkerchief, he acquires the Scrabble set? That's called kelav shel koine. Or is it kelav shel makna, that the one who is transferring the Scrabble set gives also a handkerchief, and when I take the handkerchief, I acquire the Scrabble set? So this is a machlokes. Let's see it inside. B'meh koinen. How do we go about the kinyan of chalipin? Rav Amar b'kelav shel koine. It's the utensil of the one who is acquiring, and by the way, that's what we do when you come to the Rav to sell the chametz. The Rav gives you the handkerchief, or the yarmulke, or the pen, and he acquires from you the right to sell your chametz. You're empowering him to sell your chametz. So that's kelav shel koine, the one who is acquiring. And that's Rav's opinion. While Why? The nichale lekaina, because it's pleasing for the one who's making the acquisition, the having makne kaina, that the other person should acquire the handkerchief, ki heichiv the ligmar v'liknei lei, that he should give him over the Scrabble set. The Levi Amar, Levi says, Bekelev shel makne. The person that's transferring to me the Scrabble set also gives me his handkerchief. Come on. And how that, the mechanics of that, will explain shortly. Amalei Rav Huna mediskarta l'Rava, u'leLevi da Amar Bekelev shel makne. Now it comes out an odd thing. The Gemara at this point assumes that you could acquire real estate also with this handkerchief. So if the din is that it's the kelev of the one who is transferring it, that means if Michal Avram is selling me a piece of real estate, he gives me the handkerchief, and through the handkerchief I acquire the real estate, which is odd, because that would mean that nechasim sheyesh lehem achrayus, which is karka, is acquired through the medium of nechasim she'ein lehem achrayus, through a movable like a handkerchief. Now we know that the exact opposite is true. The Gemara says nechasim she'ein lehem achrayus, bowling balls, are acquired via nechasim sheyesh lehem achrayus. When I acquire real estate, I acquire the bowling balls with it, and that's what the Gemara asks. U'leLevi dama bekelev shel makne, that the one who's transferring the Scrabble set, he's also giving me the handkerchief. Hakakani ara agav glima. Then that would mean that if Michal Avram is transferring me real estate, he would transfer it by giving me a handkerchief. Im kein havalu nechasim sheyesh lehem achrayus, that would be property that is secure, real estate, niknin im nechasim she'ein lehem achrayus, through the vehicle of a handkerchief. But for ibchat tanan, and on ibchat tanan, we learned the opposite. That nechasim she'ein lehem achrayus, like bowling balls, niknim im nechasim sheyesh lehem achrayus, is acquired through real estate, not the other way around. Amalei, so he says, let me tell you how Levi will explain it. The mechanics is as follows. If, let's say, Reuven wants to transfer to me a Scrabble set through Chalipin, according to Levi, he gives me a handkerchief. And through the benefit that he gets from me, that I'm accepting a gift from him, that's giving him honor, that I'm accepting a gift from him. Through that benefit that I recognize him, he gladly transfers to me the Scrabble set. That's the mechanics over here. Let's see it inside. If Levi would be here, have a mapik la'apach pulse denura, he would show you flashes of fire for asking such a question. Mi savit glima maknale bahi mi savit. Do you think glima maknale? Do you think that the handkerchief or the cloak, whatever he's using, a garment, a handkerchief, do you think that the glima is giving him the occupation of the land? It's not the garment. What it is the benefit that I'm giving to Michal Avram, that I'm accepting a gift from him. With that benefit, he transfers to me the real estate.
Is that why when we're using electronics to translate, does this reason hold for that?
When we use what?
If you're using a computer, or you're going to sell comments through your computer, does this reason go to that?
No. When people sell the chametz through the computer, there really isn't a kinyan necessary, because you can delegate me as a shliach without making a kinyan. The kinyan is just to strengthen it. Especially during COVID, when it wasn't possible to be in front of a person, we relied on simply making a shliach. You could simply make me a shliach, sell my chametz. You don't really need a kinyan. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're not buying something from me. The kinyan was done to starken the shlichus. Also, the reason why they do it also is that people shouldn't think it's a sham. You know, people think it's a sham. It's in the house. The guy's not coming there. So we do more things to make people aware that it's a real thing. Right, that's correct. As a matter of fact, certain rabbanim would have the guy go to people's houses on Pesach in order to make it real by them that it's not theirs.
He would go to the house.
He would go to the house and ask for his chametz. Now,
This lady said, we have this similar in Kedushin, when a person wanted to do Kedushin with another person.
correct. That's correct. But that is correct. Bahiyana, that you're accepting a gift from me. With that, I'll agree to be mekudeshes to you. That's correct. Now, this machloikis of whether it's Kelev Shel Kaina or Kelev Shel Makna, it originates between Boyaz and Pliny Almaini. We know that when Boyaz was to marry Rus, he wasn't the closest Goyal to marry Rus. There was somebody closer. And with that mitzvah of Geula, the person would also acquire Elimelech's property. So, Kinyan Chalipin was done, where Boyaz acquired the right to Begoyel Rus. And that's the source of Kinyan Chalipin. The pasuk is ambiguous. The pasuk is ambiguous. And, you know, I see Marshall sending out texts, but I don't see Marshall. So says the Gemara, Ketanoi. The question of if we do Kelev Shel Kaina or Kelev Shel Makna is a machlokes Tanoim. V'zois lifnim b'Yisrael, and this was the practice before in Klal Yisrael, ala geula v'ala tmura, for redemption and exchange, l'kayim kol davar, to uphold all matters, shalaf ish na'aloi, a man removed his shoe, v'nasan l're'eyu. Now, but you notice it's ambiguous. Who removed the shoe and gave it to who? Geula zumechiret. Geula means a sale. You're not allowed to sell the animal that's ma'aseh behema. Tmura zu chalipin, an exchange. So you can't switch it, you can't exchange. L'kayim kol davar shalaf ish na'aloi. A man removes his shoe v'nasan l're'eyu. Mi nasan l'mi. Who gave it to who? Boyaz nasan l'goyim. Boyaz gave it to the goyim. Now Boyaz was the Kona. Rabbi Yehuda goyim nasan l'Boyaz. The Redeemer gave it to Boyaz. That means the Makna. Tana. We learned in the Braisa. Kainin b'keli. When making the kinyan of Chalipin, the instrument of Chalipin has to be a keli, a utensil. Afalpi, it's good, even though she'ein b'ishav a pruta, even though it doesn't have the value of a pruta. Amar Rav Nachman lo yishanu ela b'keli. This is the machlokes we quoted earlier. Rav Nachman says it has to be like a shoe, it has to be utensil. Aval b'peri loy, but you cannot use fruit You cannot use produce. You cannot use an animal. Rav Sheshes Amar Afilu B'Peiros. It could even be fruit. My time of the Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman simply says, Amakra Nalai. The pasuk says a shoe. Nalayin, only a keli, midachri nalai, not produce. My time of the Rav Sheshes. What's the reason of Rav Sheshes? Amakra, it says lekayim kol davar. And we darshan from kol davar, it could be anything. The Rav Nachman Nami Yoksiv lekayim kol davar. Says the Gemara, Ahu lekayim kol davar the niklim b'minal. This is that it says that anything could be acquired with a shoe. Not that you could use anything, but that anything can be acquired through a shoe. Says the Gemara, Rav Sheshes Nami Hoksiv Naloi. So how could he say it's anything? Amar Rav Sheshes Man Na'aloi Davar Amasuyim. It has to be something whole. Av Kol Davar Amasuyim. You can't use a piece for chalipin. Lafuki chatzi rimin v'chatzi ega is the law. You can't use a half a pomegranate. You can't use a half a nut. Amar Rav Sheshes B'rei Rav Idi. You know, let's look at what it says in the Ksuva. Let's look at what it says in the Ksuva. Excuse me. Let's look at the lashon of the Ksuva. Amar Rav Sheshes B'rei Rav Idi. Keman kasvinan ha'idna. According to who do we write today in the Ksuva? B'mana de kosher lemikanya bay. It's interesting how the Artscroll pronounced this lemikanya. Many people, when they read the Ksuva, they say b'mana de kosher lemikna bay. But the lashon of the Artscroll is b'mana de kosher lemikanya bay. So the Ksuva was made binding through a keli, which is kosher to acquire with it. So now we're going to analyze each word. B'mana, it has to be a keli. Lafukim and Rav Sheshes da'amar kainim b'peiros, that you could acquire even with produce. I remember Rav Moshe used to use his pen. The kosher, Lafukim de Shmuel, this excludes Shmuel, da'amar kainim b'meroika. This excludes Shmuel, who holds that you could even use as an article of chalipin something made out of dry dung, dungware. It has to be something kosher, worthy. Limikanya, lafuke midalevi. This is coming to include, when it says to acquire, that means that it's kalev shelkaina. Limikanya, it's coming lafuke midalevi da'ama b'kalev shel makne kemash malan. It's not the kalim of the one that transfers, but rather the mekanya, the one that acquires. V'loy leknuye, not the one that transfers. And what's the word bay with it? With it is a limitation. You can't use a coin for chalipin. Rav Zvid b'yisem Ravashi amalimute yisure ana. You can't use an item that's asab ana. For example, if something was used in the service of idolatry, it's asab ana. It can't be used as an instrument of chalipin. Ikad Amrei is another version. Look who's here. Look who's here. Oh my goodness. Look at that. He's in Madison Square Garden by a Siyam Daf Yomi. Unbelievable.
United Center, not Madison Square Garden.
There's a CM there? Who's there?
See, look right here. See? We have you put on the ice now.
Rabbi, he's on
Yomi,
the ice.
RMMW. I don't want to disturb the sheriff. I'm gonna lead the share. Keep going. I'm sorry, but
You
everybody.
could stay on this year. Maybe you'll learn something.
Maybe I'll learn something. Chas v'shalom. What do you think I'm doing?
I don't know. It says, Nesui chata. You should cover your sins. Anyway.
Talked about covering something else.
No one is Mekabel Lashon Hara. This is all a figment of your imagination. It's a dream. Says the Gemara weiter. Now, Iked Amrei is another version. Bay, as we said, Bay is a limitation. What's it coming to limit? Not Marshall. It's coming to limit. Amar Papa Limute Madbeya. It comes to exclude that a Madbeya is no good for Chalipin. And when it says kosher lemekanya bay, what's kosher coming to tell you? The kosher Amar Rav Zvid v'Rav Ashi Limute Yisuri Hana, to exclude something that was used in the service of idolatry. Aval marika lo yitzrach, dungware, nobody would even think that you could use that. Now, asimon kaina amatbeya. Now, as we learned in the Mishnah, when you are selling a slug for money, so since the money is more liquid than the slug, so the slug is the merchandise, and therefore when you make hagvar on the slug, then the money is binding. So, my asimon, what's a asimon? Amar Rav says it's a token. It's a token that's given as a reservation for the bathhouse. This way, the bathhouse attendant could keep a record of who was using the bathhouse. Meisvei. So the Gemara says it's very difficult to learn that asimon is a token for the bathhouse. We learned ein mechalel ma'aser sheni al asimon. You can't deconcentrate ma'aser sheni on asimon because the pasuk says v'tzarta kesef yadecha, which means kesef that has a tzura, that has an imprint. And v'loy al mois hanitanas b'simin l'beis hamerchetz, and not money that's given as a token to the bathhouse attendant. So that means that asimon is different than that. It's not a token. Maybe it's just explaining. We learned you could do ma'aser sheni on a token. So we see that an asimon is something else. El Amar Rav Yochanan, my asimon pulsa. Asimon is a blank before it's minted. It's a blank, a slug, like I said. It's a blank. Says the Gemara, "V'azder Rav Yochanan tamei, Damar Rav Yochanan, Rabbi Daisa, Rabbi Yishmael, Amru davar echad." Rabbi Daisa and Rabbi Yishmael both say the same thing. Rabbi Daisa hada Amran. Rabbi Daisa says that you could be mechal ma'aser sheni on a slug, and Rabbi Yishmael, Maihi, the Tanya v'tzarta kesef biyodecha. You should bind the money in your hand. Now, why does it say bind? It should just say v'lakachta kesef biyodecha. So from the fact that it says v'tzarta l'rabas kol davar hanitzra biyad, anything that could be bundled in your hand, Divrei Rabbi Yishmael, and a slug could be bundled in the hand. Rabbi Akiva says, L'Rabbis kol davar sheyesh alav tzura. Rabbi Akiva argues, and he says the lashon of Tzarta tells us that it has to be something that is minted, and therefore a slug would not be good. Ketzad mashach heimenu peiros v'lo nasan lo mais. So if, let's say, I am buying from Berish produce for $100, if I make Mashiach on the produce, even though I didn't give him the money yet, any Yachalazim, it can't back out. Because once Mashiach is made on the merchandise, the deal is binding. So here we're going to go through the Machloikis, whether money is kaina midaraisa, and Mashiach is only a gezeira, or whether Mashiach is kaina midaraisa. Let's see it inside. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Dvar Torah ma'is kainais. Biblically speaking, money acquires. Umipnei ma amru Mashiach kaina. Why do we say you need Mashiach? So let's go back to that Maisa with Dr. Block. Remember Dr. Block? I bought from Dr. Block Encyclopedia Britannica, and I gave him the $100 for it. And we said that really, biblically speaking, I acquire with the money. But we're afraid that if that's a lasting kinyan, then if a fire breaks out before Dr. Block delivered it, he's not going to bother saving it because it's mine already. So therefore we say it's not mine until I take it. So this way, if there's a fire, Dr. Block will save it. As the Gemara explains, Gezeira, it's a decree, Shema Yomi, lest Dr. Block tell me, Nisrifu Chitach Ba'aliyah. Says the Gemara, but what are we worried about? The guy that set the fire is anyway going to have to pay me for the Britannica. I'm not going to be out of my Britannica. The one who set the fire is going to have to pay for it. Says, well, no, we're afraid that a fire might break out by an oinus, by an accident. So if it's still Dr. Block's until I make Mashiach Maser Nafshe Torah Chamatzel, he'll go through the trouble of saving it. But if not, Loy Maser Nafshe Torah Chamatzel. That's the position of Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish Ama Mashiach Mefureshes Minat Torah. No. In order to acquire it, I have to make the Ma'aser Kinyan either of Agva, if it's light, of picking it up, or Mashiach, if it's heavy. My time at Reish Lakish. What's the reason of Reish Lakish? It's a Beferish Pasuk. Amakra v'chi simkeru memker lamisecha. When you make a sale to your friend, O kana miyad amisecha, or acquire it from the hands of your friend. Davar anikna miyad liyad. It's acquired when it goes from Dr. Block's hand to my hand. I have to make a Mashiach. Rabbi Yochanan says no. The reason why it says miyad is l'me'ute karka. Since this pasuk is talking about overcharging, it says le'sanu ish es amisa. You're not allowed to cheat your friend, and there's no oina by real estate. Real estate, location. There's no overcharging by real estate. Rabbi Yochanan Amar miyad lim'ute karka, it excludes real estate. The less be'ayna, there's no overcharging. Says Reish Lakish, according to Reish Lakish, im kein licht of kra, let the pasuk say, v'chi simker memker miyad amisecha. And when you buy it, miyad amisecha, so we would learn out from the lashon of miyad that it's not real estate. Al tainu. Why does it have to say oikana, which is extra? Lamalish mamina l'mishicha. It's talking about you have to acquire it from hand to hand. Rabbi Yochanan oikana mayavadle. Mi baile lekrisanya v'chi simker memker altonu. Ainly elishinis ana lekeach. That's only if the buyer was cheated, where he was overcharged. What about if the seller was cheated, where he was underpaid? Nis'ana moichem inaya. What about if you take advantage of somebody and underpay the seller? How do we know that there also is an isra of oina? Tamalayma oikana. Oikana comes to tell you oikana. Or when you're buying, altona. When you buy, don't cheat and underpay. Reish Lakish tarte gamar minei. He says we could learn both lessons, that you shouldn't cheat the seller, and also that it's something that goes from hand to hand. It's acquired through pulling it to you. Now, Tanan, as we learned the last piece of Gemara, every daf that you learn in Azov is an accomplishment of a lifetime. It really is. I mean, this is if you could learn prakim like Azov, sky's the limit on Shas. Sky's the limit. It doesn't get much harder than this. Says the Gemara, Tanan. Reb Shimon Aimer, we had the final opinion in our Mishnah is, Reb Shimon Aimer kol shak kesef biyadai, whoever has the money, yadai al yain. So in a case where I'm buying the stallion for Mark, when I give Mark the money, he has the upper hand. He could decide yet to renege on the deal, but I can't renege on the deal anymore. So, as the Gemara explains, Shimon Aimer kol shakesa biyada yada yalel yaina. Mark has the upper hand. Meicher hu dematzi hadabe. He could still back out, but lekeach loy matzi hadabe. But the buyer can't back out. So the Gemara says, if you hold, like the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, that Dvar Torah money acquires, that's why the seller could back out. The buyer can't back out. And it fits in also with the Gezerah. Because since Mark has the option to back out, if the price goes up, then Mark will make sure to take care of the merchandise. If money does not acquire without Mashiach, like Reish Lakish, so then why should Mark be the only one to be able to back out? Let the buyer, myself, be able to back out also until the Mashiach is done. Amalach Reish Lakish says, I'm not saying in the sheet of Reb Shimon. Reish Lakish, Alib Reb Shimon like Kamina. Obviously, Reb Shimon holds Moi's kindness. Ki Kamina Alib Rabbanan. My position that Mashiach is kaina is only according to the Rabbanan, not according to Reb Shimon. So the Gemara says, Bishleim Reish Lakish. It's easy to understand according to Reish Lakish. Hainu di'ika bein Reb Shimon l'Rabbanan. And that's very good, the difference between Reb Shimon and Rabbanan. Reb Shimon says Mois is kindness, and the Rabbanan hold that Mashiach is kindness. El Reb Yochanan ma'ika bein Reb Shimon l'Rabbanan. What's the difference between Reb Shimon and Rabbanan? So ika bein ayu de Rav Chisda. The difference is Rav Chisda. The Amar Rav Chisda kederach shetiknu b'Mashiach b'Meichrin. Just like they enacted that the seller can back out before he makes Mashiach, kach tiknu Mashiach b'lekuches. So they also said that before the buyer does Mashiach, the buyer could back out. Reb Shimon Lesley to Rav Chisda. Reb Shimon says if money was given, only the seller could back out. The buyer can't. Rabbanan Islu to Rav Chisda. Rabbanan hold of Rav Chisda. We'll stop over here, Rabbi Isai, and we now move on to the Mishnah Yomis as we start the fourth parak of Masechtas Nazir.